Good morning. I'd like to call this regular board meeting of the Desert Water Agency to order. This is for September 3rd. Sounds like a lot of echo in the room. September 3rd at 8 o'clock. And just some housekeeping to let the folks know who are participating virtually to please keep your microphones muted until you are ready to speak during public comment or otherwise. And for those of us that are in the room, reminder to mute our electronic devices so that they don't interrupt us during the course of the meeting. And I will be calling on directors in the following roll call order: Director Gracia, Director Bloomer, Secretary Treasurer McKenna, Vice President Bowman, and President Ortega. All votes will be conducted via roll call. And the next item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to ask Vice President Bowman to lead us, please.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Right. Item 3 would be the roll call. Ms. Baca, please.
Director Gracia,
Present.
Director Bloomer,
Present.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Present.
Vice President Bowman,
Here.
and President Ortega,
Present.
all present.
Thank you. Item 4, public comment on items not on today's agenda. So this is a time for public comments that are not on today's agenda, but are within the scope of the Desert Water Agency. If there are any members of the public who would like to speak on an item not on today's agenda, we ask that you keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes. And as provided in the Brown Act, the board is prohibited from acting on items that are not shown on today's agenda. Ms. Baca, have we received any public comment? Okay. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak? Seeing none, we'll move to item 5. Similarly, this is for public comment on items that are listed on today's agenda. If there are members of the public who would like to speak about an item on today's agenda, again, we ask you to leave your comments to no more than 3 minutes, or make your comments to no more than 3 minutes. Seeing none, we can move to consent calendar items. These are items that are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by one motion of the board without discussion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a board member requests a specific item to be discussed and or removed from the consent calendar for separate action. So I think we have 3 items on the consent calendar today, which is item 6. Are there any board members that would like to have further discussion on any of the 3 items shown? No? Okay, so I will look for a motion to accept the consent calendar as it's presented.
I move we accept the consent calendar as presented.
Thank you. I'll look for a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. First from Director Gracia and a second from Director Bloomer. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 7, this is an action item. Action item 7A is request board adoption of the Desert Water Agency Domestic Water System General Plan 2022 or 2020. This long anticipated report from our general manager.
Yes,
Please, Mr. Johnson.
all right. Thank you, President Ortega and members of the board. Yes, this is the 2020 Domestic Water System General Plan that we're asking the board to approve today. Again, our general plan is used as a guide for staff for system improvement design, and typically it's for a 20-year period. However, a general plan can be updated at any time that staff feels necessary. This will be our 6th general plan for the agency. The last approved general plan was a 2008 general plan. And today, the board is only approving the general plan, not any specific project that is within the plan. It's only the plan itself. And once we, if the board does adopt the plan, staff will then file a notice of exemption with Riverside County for exemption of a CEQA. And the reason why the plan is exempt from CEQA is there's three outlined here in the report. Number one, the activity will not result in a direct or reasonable, foreseeable indirect physical change in the environment. The activity is not a project as defined in section 15378 of the California Code of Regulations, and the activity is covered by the common sense exemption that CEQA applies only to projects which have the potential for causing a significant effect on the environment. I do want to give some explanation as to why this is a 2020 plan and we are in 2024. So back in 2018, we were looking to do a 10-year update to our 2008 plan. However, we felt that it would be best, there wasn't any significant changes at that point. We thought, we'll go to 2020, that'll get us on a round number. So, and then in 2020, COVID hit, and that put a lot of chaos into our consulting firms, staffing, our staff here, and it got us a little behind schedule, delayed. But we have been working with our consultant on this, and I'll give you some insight into the 2008 plan versus the 2020 plan that we're asking for adoption today. So in 2008, the projected annual water requirements in that plan, it said for 2020 was going to be 53,000 acre feet. Our 2020 plan, the actual water requirements were 30,600. In our 2008 general plan, we were looking at a 2030 water requirements of around 61,000 acre feet, whereas this plan here, we're looking at 37,600, and then in 2040, we're looking at 44,600 acre feet. Some of the recommendations in the 2008 general plan for system improvements, we were one new well in the Snow Creek area, which was designed, called to replace our surface water system supply. There was, in that 08 plan, we were projecting that we would lose our surface water supply. They called for one new well in Palm Oasis, 2 new wells in our Chino system, 4 new wells in our Palm Springs system, and 1 new well in our East system. It also called for around 11 million gallons of storage that was going to be required by 2030 within all of our systems. And we were going to need around 6,000 lineal feet of 24-inch pipe for our Chino system to cover some, where those new wells were going to go in. We were going to need some transmission mains to move the water into these new storage reservoirs. In the 2020 plan that we're approving today, the plan calls for just 1 new well in the Palm Springs main system, and by 2030, it's projecting about 1.5 million gallons of additional storage. Now, the new plan does not take into effect the regulations that are just the new laws that have come into play this year, the conservation as a way of life in California. And therefore, I would recommend that a general plan will stick on the 10-year schedule, so a new plan should be implemented in 2030. At that point, you'll be able to assess how conservation as a way of life is affecting the agency and reevaluate our system improvements. But at this time, staff is recommending that the board adopt our domestic water system general plan for 2020, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Director Gracia, do you have any questions?
Well, I want to thank you for a very thorough report. I read it. I'm on my third time reading it. First time I read it, I thought I had it. The second time, I must have missed an entire section. Somehow I set my iPad down, and when I opened it back up, I had, anyway, fascinating stuff, seemingly some admissions that the work going forward is going to be very important for the agency. It seems like this report almost caps your entire career at the agency. It's like, well, this is what we got right, this is what we got wrong, and this is where we're going in the future. And it's a gift from you to the agency that you've overseen this. So I appreciate it very much, and know how much work was put into it. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Bloomer?
No comments or questions, thanks.
Thank you. Secretary Treasurer McKenna?
I have a lot of questions, unfortunately. When I look at, there are two scenarios in this plan about what we call normal operation and time of use operation. And when I picked apart the details, I saw that there was a $37 million difference between those two possible approaches. So has anyone done any analysis to see, would we get back that $37 million in utility savings during this plan?
We have, I'm not aware of past plans where we did that analysis, we have not done that regarding this plan either. The time of use scenario would be considered the worst case scenario that we would design to. It deals with reservoir storage, and when we do that, we want to, as I said, take into an account our normal operations, how we would see a typical storage requirement of water under a normal scenario. And we then look at that time of use scenario. If we had to go into those type of scenarios with Edison, that's what we would have to account for. But when we design our system, we design based on the normal use operations.
All right. I just want to note that I pulled down some data from Bloomberg New Energy Finance, and since in 2020, the utility scale batteries cost $201 per kilowatt hour of storage. They're already down to 150, and the company that makes batteries for Tesla says they'll be selling them for $60 per kilowatt hour by the end of the year. So if you're looking at time of use tariff, then obviously utility scale batteries at the sites of the pumps would be a much better idea to get you through that high cost period in the afternoon. I'm going to ask my fellow directors not to approve this plan, and here's why. The plan is the vision in this plan is for an agency that continues on the current path and that does what we've always done. And I think the vision we really need is not an agency that looks at spending $37 million to get through time of use tariffs, but one that spends 60, 80, maybe $100 million to get completely independent of a utility company. Now, I've mentioned this before, and I've had some discussions with the general manager, the gist of his responses are, it will be hard, and it would. I think we should be going 100% solar, we should be going 100% renewable, 100% sustainable, and it will be hard. And it took me back to a speech made on, let me check my notes, September 12th, 1962, at Rice University, a speech that was instrumental in me studying engineering in the first place, about why we do things that are hard. And the speech, I'll quote, the speaker said, "Some say, why choose this as our goal? They may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why 35 years ago fly the Atlantic?" We do this not because it is easy, but because it will be hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one we are willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win. I'm sure everyone in the room who knows who made that speech. It was President Kennedy. And I think that's the vision we should have. It will be hard, but it's what we should do. And so I'll ask my fellow directors, let's put this plan on hold and work it over again and look at the vision we should have. That's it.
Thank you. Vice President Bowman.
To me, general plans are when you try to put on your soothsayer hat and determine what it's going to be like in the future. I do appreciate, Director McKenna, your points about newness and change and technology. And I believe that our district has done that in the last several years that I've been here with the upgrade of our electronic system and what's coming down the pipeline. But anyway, general plans are also interesting in that what we just did, what you did now, General Manager Johnson, you looked back. We had this 4-year gap and what happened. And that's the other purpose of general plans, is to see where we were and where can we go. So they are just that, general. They're not specific. They are a prognostication of what might happen. And so I just find it interesting that, and I'm glad that we do this, but we don't know if another COVID hits, it would alter any and everything. We don't know what could happen. So anyway, I'm for this general plan.
Thank you. I don't have any additional comments, so it looks like we can move to a motion to accept, or a motion to begin with. Go ahead.
I
I'm sorry.
move that we adopt item 7, the request board adoption of the Desert Water Agency Domestic Water System General Plan of 2020.
Thank you. Look for a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a first from Director Gracia and a second from Director Bloomer. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
No.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you. All right, so we can move now to our Secretary Treasurer's report for July 2024. Mr. McKenna.
The operating fund, excuse me. In the operating fund, we received $4.3 million in water sales revenue, $98,000 in recycled water sales revenue, and $23,000 in miscellaneous receipts from the City of Indio as part of a grant. We paid out $7.8 million in accounts payable, including $536,000 to Southern California Edison. Year-to-date water sales are 1% under budget, total revenue is 1% under budget, and expenses are 14% under budget. There were 23,578 active service accounts, a decrease of 10 in previous months. There were 32 water accounts disconnected for non-payment. Over the last 12 months, the average is 22 per month. The general fund received $2.5 million in property taxes, $45,000 in replenishment assessments, $47,000 in power sales from Southern California Edison, and paid out $4 million in state water project charges. Year to date, $4 million. This is the first month of our financial year. The wastewater fund paid out $83,000 in accounts payable.
Okay. Are there any questions for Secretary Treasurer McKenna?
I have one
Sure.
for Finance Director. The 14% under budget, is there anything we're not doing we should be doing or?
It's not really a measure of what we are doing versus not doing. Rather, many of our expenses, they're divided by 12 to spread them out for the entire year, but efforts don't track that way. So rather than slotting them in, we are doing these efforts in July, August, September. They're divided out unless we know for sure that they will be happening at a specific time.
And I'm guessing this means that we're going to catch up to that 14% figure pretty soon.
That is correct.
Okay.
Typically, we're way under the first couple of months, and then it starts to normalize.
Thank you for the clarification. That's kind of what I thought, but I wanted to make sure.
Director Bloomer.
No questions.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna, you probably don't have any questions for yourself. And Vice President Bowman?
None from me.
Yeah, all right. And then also just to follow up on Director Grash's question, this is only the first month of the fiscal year anyway, so it's really doesn't show.
That's correct.
Yeah, it's not very fair assessment at just the first month. All right, so we can move on to the item number 9, which is our General Manager's Report.
Thank you, President Ortega. The first item here, our operations department did some work at our Date Palm lift station. We replaced our 400 amp switch gear. The switch gear is the connector component to the Edison system, and they were able to do the work within 4 hours. We did have a consulting and contractor firm, Sulzer Electric. They do our design and build the components of our switchgear for our sites. And we do that so that all of our sites are standardized. And they, again, helped with this switchgear. And now, since this was a lift station, there were some concerns that we had. We were shutting the power off, but the sewage continues to flow into the lift station. So they ran the site with a portable diesel generator that's at the site. It's a permanent fixture at the site. And they ran that during those 4 hours. But we also had a backup generator on site in case, for whatever reason, that the on-site diesel generator failed. We had a sewage pumper truck, or what we would call a Vector truck, on site in case both generators failed. We had a dump truck that was loaded with sand there to create a berm if the pumper truck could not keep up, so that we could maintain the sewage on site. Fortunately for us, we were well prepared and did not have to worry about using the backup generator or the Vector truck or the sand. This equipment was $19,000 and was purchased under our wastewater maintenance account. And the crews did a great job. You can see some photos there of the old gear. Again, that type of equipment has a shelf life of around 20 years, and this was, I believe, constructed back in 1998. So we got its life out of it. And that's a photo of the new equipment.
Do I see in that first picture a big arm that would switch it off?
Yes. Yeah, that's the disconnect.
My hotel had something like that. It was ancient
Yeah.
and scary. Is really
Yes, as you see, the new equipment has more of the updated type of disconnect on the, I believe it's on the right-hand side.
We used to call them on and off switches.
Okay. All right, the next item, I just wanted to highlight, we are done with the work out front in the visitors parking lot. We did, if you recall, we had our shade structures built, and then we sat dormant for several months. We have now put in our bollards and our pavers. I think it looks outstanding. Very pleased with how it turned out, and just we had a contractor come out. Farley Interlocking Paving Company did the paving work, paver work. That was a little too. Our guys don't typically do that type of work, so we had the contractor come in and do that for us.
Looks great.
Yeah, I think it turned out great too. And then we have our system leak data. This is only for 10 days, so there's only 14 leaks. A couple of those streets are on our replacement, our winter 2024. We're currently in the design of that. And then we did Indian Canyons Drive. It's an old main, 1938, had 4 leaks. So I'm sure that's moving up on our list of replacement streets. And the final item is, again, general manager's meetings and activities. Not a lot since it's been fairly short period between the last meeting. But again, the tribal mediation is dictating a lot of time. And that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Director Grasha, do you have any questions or comments?
No comments. Well, the parking area does look fantastic. With, the addition of those pavers out there really cleaned it up nicely, and just good work, and thank you.
Thank you. Director Bloomer,
No comments or questions, thanks.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna.
I have none, thank you.
Okay. Vice President Bowman.
None from me.
Okay, and none for me, so we can move on to item 10, Director's Reports on Meetings and Events attended on behalf of the agency. Just asked that each of the directors, if you attended a conference or a meeting on behalf of the agency within the last 2 weeks, if you could give us the date of that event and tell us a little bit about it. And we'll start with Director Grasha.
Well, on August 27th, I believe that was the same day as our last board meeting. I attended the Aqua presentation of Making Conservation a California Way of Life regulation meeting, Zoom meeting, and it was informative and probably, I don't know, did we all attend that? Is that the
I don't know if we all did.
yeah. Were you there? I thought you were.
Yep.
Okay, good. That's what I thought. I didn't know if the rest of us were. Anyway, on August 21st and 22nd, the Urban Water Institute Conference in San Diego. And on August 27th, I see why, was the Coachella Valley Water District Board meeting. They gave their annual investment report. One of the interesting things highlighted there was our unemployment rate in the Coachella Valley is steady at 9.8%, where nationwide it's much lower than that. They authorized the general manager to execute a task order for the professional services agreement with Todd Groundwater in the amount of $400,000 to develop the Coachella Valley Regional Water Resilience Plan, and an agreement with Krieger and Stewart in the amount of $730,000 for the design of fiscal year 2025 potable water pipeline connection projects. And they authorized the purchase of new Dell servers and storage hardware at $460,000 to replace a system that's aged out. And on August 28th, the Aqua Regulatory Quarterly Committee meeting was rather in-depth on many subjects and went on for what seemed like all day. I think it was all day. I have a comment for director's comment, so that's it for meetings.
Thank you, Director Bloomer.
Okay, so I also attended Urban Water Institute August 21st to the 23rd, and there seemed to still be some themes around workforce development they touched on. There was a really interesting presentation the last morning from, I don't forget what his title was, from Flint, Michigan, and he was just kind of presenting a look back on how that all went and what they learned and moving forward. So that was very interesting as well. And the other items that days that I had mediation meetings were August 5th, August 27th, and August 28th. And that's it.
Thank you. Secretary Treasurer McKenna.
I also attended the Urban Water Institute meeting in San Diego. I don't have the dates in front of me. I was particularly struck by some of the presentations. Peter McBride, photographer and author, worked for National Geographic, had hiked the entire Grand Canyon, about an 800-mile trip when you take account all the side branches you had to go through. He had a really splendid book on the Grand Canyon. So it's so good I bought it and took it home. And the Colorado River is very, very important to us and 40 million other people. 7 states, 2 Mexican states, and 30 Native American tribes. So there are other chapters to be written in that story. Also, I was struck by a presentation given by Bruce Resnick from Los Angeles about how much imported water Los Angeles could do without if they were, cleaning up some of the groundwater that's contaminated and reusing wastewater, more conservation. And he thinks about 80% of the water that Los Angeles imports in its 3 different water pipelines, if you like, could be saved, not used. And I think that's part of the future for all of us, is that we stop bringing water from 600 miles away and using it once and throwing it away. We just can't do that. Now my notes have turned off. And the Flint, Michigan, absolutely horrible story to sit through and watch what happened in Flint, Michigan, trying to save pennies and ultimately cost the health of the entire community and millions of dollars. And you hope and pray that it never happens here. And I think all our staff are motivated to make sure it never happens here. So that was it for me. I also attended a Mission Springs Water District study session on August 15th, I think, and that was it for me.
Thank you. Vice President Bowman.
Yes, I had the principals meeting on the 27th, on the 28th, and executive committee on the 29th. That is it.
All right, thank you. I also attended the Zoom call on Tuesday, the August 20th, put on by Aqua for, this is one, I guess, of 2, at least 2 that are planned for water agencies and municipal governments to understand what California, making conservation a California way of life actually means. And I think I understand that the next session, which will be in a couple of months, will be more technical, which is what I was actually kind of hoping for, but it was interesting to listen to nonetheless. Then attended from the 20th to the 23rd, the Urban Water Institute Conference in San Diego. I just want to echo, first off, what Secretary Treasurer McKenna said about the Colorado River presentation. It was visually stunning, absolutely stunning, and very inspiring, I guess you could say, as also in both the ways of the beauty of the Colorado River and the Grand Canyon, but also inspiring on what the things that we need to really be thinking about in terms of how we protect that beauty and that resource. Others that stand out for me, I guess I would echo too. There were quite a few presentations. I felt that the theme on dreams, California Dreamin', was a little bit stretched in terms of some of the subjects. But back to the comment about Flint, Michigan, which was actually listed as a nightmare as opposed to a dream, which I guess could still be a dream. And I just wanted to just slightly correct what Director Bloomer said. It was actually Gary Brown from the city of Detroit. It wasn't for the city of Flint. And I think the big takeaway for me, not only understanding better because he was there kind of on the ground when this was happening, and still is on the ground and still dealing with it. And I think the biggest takeaway I took from that, and not only in how it happened and why it happened and the bad decisions that were made along the way and sort of the lack of transparency and all those other things that we've heard so many times before about this very tragic story from Michigan. But I think the big thing for me was the impact that it had on the city of Detroit and the water agency that supports the city of Detroit, which had nothing to do with this problem. They did not start it. They did not create it. They ended up coming back in to fix it in the very end. And yet years later, here we are almost, 9 years later? 10 years later, they're dealing with the problem still. It's impacting them, even though it wasn't their fault. It wasn't their problem. And it kind of really hit home to me that the perception is the important thing. You know, that's what the people in Detroit, they know the Flint story. Flint is 60 miles away. They know that story, and that somehow reflects on their water supplier in a very negative way. I mean, some of the statistics that he gave to us during that conversation about the number of accounts that are past due was like 2/3. It was a ridiculous number. I mean, how can you can't run a water operation that way? And that they are, of course, they do have lead pipes in their system, and they are replacing them, which is one of the outcomes that came from this tragedy. But they're trying to do the right thing, and yet they're being penalized by something that had nothing to do with them. And I think that was the important thing to me, is that lack of public confidence and how hard it is to get it back, and it doesn't take much to lose it. So with, let's see, I had a couple more actually. I had on the 28th, this was a non-compensable meeting, was with our accounting firm to go through what I guess is called SAS 99. I'm not really sure what that means, but it was a phone interview to talk about the audit that's, I guess they're currently performing. And then on the 30th, some computer security training. And that's all I have. So with that, I guess we can move to the next item, which is comments and requests. And we'll start with Director Gracia.
Just a quick comment to acknowledge our labor. We now have a union. Our workforce has decided to affiliate with the Teamsters Union. And as a son of a Teamster, I've got to say this is great news. I've always thought as the Teamsters is kind of the Praetorian Guard of decency. And I know that the best interest of this agency going forward will be maintaining that relationship with our staff, and I'm looking forward to working with them. That's it.
Okay. Director Bloomer,
No comments. Thanks.
thank you. Secretary Treasurer McKenna.
Excuse me. I think Mission Springs Water District is having a groundbreaking for the regional wastewater treatment plant on September 27th. Let me double check. My phones keep turning off.
It's the 27th at 9:30,
27th, 9:30. Thank you very much.
and it's actually a ribbon cutting.
And
Breaking.
it's a ribbon cutting. Yes, of course. Well past the groundbreaking stage. Yeah, I think I'd like to encourage the board members to attend that and show some, solidarity and goodwill with Mission Springs, especially when it comes to groundwater preservation. They're good at that. Let's encourage them. So I'd like to suggest we make that a compensable day event that we could go to, and I'd like senior staff to join in if possible. That's it from me.
Thank you. Vice President Bowman.
Nothing from me.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to start with this. This is from our Board Directors Handbook Policy and Ordinance number 75, which was approved by this board on February 7th, 2023 on a 4-to-1 vote. Director Bloomer was not with us that day, but it has been something but it's something that all the directors here have signed and acknowledged, which is our updated policy. And for just a little background, when this board added 3 new members back at the beginning of, or at the end of December 2022, after the general election, the decision was made to revise and update the handbook to take some of those concerns those board members brought to the board, and we did that. Now, item 6, which is on page 13, reads as follows. Personal opinions and comments contrary to adopted policy may be expressed with clarification that the statements do not reflect the official position of the board or DWA. This applies to statements to media and any online or public discussion forums. It has come to my attention that at an event attended by all members of this board last month, that there was how do I want to call this? Comments bordering on accusation that were made at a table attended by other members of other water agencies in Southern California that has caused let me just say, has caused a great concern for one of our sister water agencies. And I want to make it very clear, and I'll go back to what this statement that I just read. Contrary to adopted policy may be expressed with clarification that the statements do not reflect the official position of the board or Desert Water Agency. My understanding, as I was not at the table when this happened, but my understanding is that what was expressed is nowhere near the official policy of this board or the Desert Water Agency. Policy is set by a majority of people on this board currently sitting at this dais, and people that have sat here before, and people that will sit here in the future. And I am asking every one of you to be very careful about what you say and where you say it and to whom you say it when something crosses from your opinion into being interpreted as policy of this board. Because again, only the majority of the board can set policy. So with that, I will now move to Closed session. It is 8:45. I would like to be in the boardroom at 8:55. Thank you. Thank you. Right, so item 13 is reconvening into open session. I can report that there was no reportable actions taken in our closed session. And with that, we are adjourning this meeting today at 10:05. Thank you.